Good evening, everyone. I call to order the October 23rd, 2023 business meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience to silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Ms. Wagner, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bolton? Present. Mr. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Yeah, here.
Dr. Moffitt? Mr. Morosky? Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes, here.
President Lindy?
Here. Members of the public who are watching online and would like to speak this evening may do so by clicking the chat button now. The chat feature will be open for your requests for 5 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you would like a direct response to any question that you might have. You will see on our agenda some things that hopefully look familiar and a couple of things that may look new. In section B, you'll see the district's goals and guardrails. These are the most important student outcomes that we want to improve over the next several years based on the listening and feedback that we received from our community. Similarly, the goals are the values that we most want to see honored and upheld over the course of the next several years based on the same feedback and listening from our community. That should hopefully look familiar. If you look to section C, you will see 3 board priorities, which we adopted a little over a week ago. And these should drive the majority of the time our board is spending in meetings between now and the end of the calendar year. They are to continue progress monitoring and accountability, to share and reinforce FY25 budget context and process, and to review and decide on the ad hoc committee's recommendations. Look forward to spending the majority of our time on those 3 priorities over the course of the next 2 months. We'll transition then to item D, which is our superintendent's update. Superintendent, do we have any updates this evening?
Yes, only a brief update, President Lindy. As a follow-up to our school improvement work session on Wednesday, there were a couple of questions that I did send updates to the board, so I do want to make sure that we just go through those slides that asked 2 things. One of the questions was, where are we in comparison, or it's nice to review where we are in comparison to the Ohio 8, as well as where we are in comparison to the overall state of Ohio. So not going through all of them, just the areas that will show where we are in terms of the update. Next slide, please. So for our first goal, CPS leads Ohio 8 in 3rd grade reading by at least 5 percentage points. If you'll notice in the bar graph that we have listed, our 3rd grade reading proficiency is 47.5 as of this school year, which does make us the first in Ohio 8. However, the state's proficiency for 3rd grade is the last bar, which is 62.3. Next slide. In terms of goal 2, we also lead the Ohio 8 in 6th grade reading by at least 8 percentage points. So our proficiency for this past year was 37.9 for Cincinnati as compared to the state of 55%, even though we do lead the Ohio 8. And in most instances, it's by overall at least 8 percentage points. In terms of our 3rd goal, CPS leads Ohio 8 in Algebra 1 by at least 2 percentage points as well. This past year, our proficiency for Algebra 1 is 29.9%, essentially 30%. And for the state, the proficiency is 53%, and again, the 2% over Ohio 8. Goal 5, we have the 3rd highest 4-year graduation rate among the Ohio 8. So if we look at our overall proficiency areas, higher than us in graduation rate is Akron at 86.1 and Youngstown at 84.3. And then we're next at 80.8 and the state is 87.3. And I think that those were the only 3 areas. The additional slides were presented at Cal, but just to provide that update to the questions that were provided, that were asked on Wednesday.
Thank you, Superintendent. Are there any comments or questions from board members about the update? Ms. Bolton.
I appreciate the comparison among the eight, and I particularly, find it in this kind of going back in time. I like the comparison to where we are with the state average. And in that area, I think we need tremendous improvement, even based upon where we once were in comparison with the state. Of course, the public has to recognize too that so many of these assessments are completely different from over time, that it is apples to oranges or whatever, but I appreciate the state comparison and the eight as well. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any other questions on the superintendent's update this evening? Okay, hearing none, we're going to keep on moving to hearing of the public. We are now at the item on the agenda for hearing of the public. Each speaker will have 2 minutes and will direct all comments to the presiding officer. Once a request to speak has been granted, you will be invited to enter if you are online. Please click on the camera icon to go interactive. Provide your name, affiliation, school community, topic, and contact information if you'd like a direct response to any question you might have. This request is consistent with board protocol, and we appreciate your help. In the unusual event that someone is not willing to follow this protocol, we do reserve the right to end that person's time. Again, each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. When the timer goes off, your time is up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel items. After speaking, you will briefly see the welcome screen again as you transition back to the live stream meeting. Finally, we ask that your public comments be respectful to all listeners. Thank you. Mr. Hoying or Rob, could you tell us how many online speakers we have this evening? Just one. Okay. So what we will do is we will go through, we have several folks in person tonight. We'll go through almost all of those, do our online speaker, and then finish with Cincinnati Federation of Teachers President Julie Sellers. What I will do is I'm going to read 3 names, and if all 3 of those people could come down, I'll read them again as we go, but it'll just help us transition more quickly between speakers. And then I'll announce again who the following speaker would be so folks come down early, and we'll make sure everybody has their time. I just add that, so excuse me, those names, first 3, we have Deborah Elkins Brown, we have Gloria Frost, we have Nancy Hicks. Those will be our first 3. And as those 3 are coming down, for people who have not watched many of our board meetings, we typically do not respond in the meeting. Sometimes that's because of time. Sometimes that's because there's follow-up work that needs to happen in order to provide a response. But we do ask for people's contact information so we can provide a response if people would like one. So if you haven't received one and asked for one, please contact me directly via the board office. We will start with Ms. Elkins Brown.
I'm with John P. Parker School, and the reason why I'm speaking, can you hear me now? Okay. Just want to say that John P. Parker has pre-K through 6. We would like for it to remain the same. We still have a lot of seats available. I've experienced when we had 7th and 8th grade. It is very conducive that we remain the way we are. We see that our children are improving with their learning. Our outcomes are showing in the data, and I feel as though we should remain pre-K through 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Gloria Frost, followed by Nancy Hicks, followed by Ashley Garland.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Frost, and I am a teacher at John P. Parker School. John P. Parker is an outstanding school that services the Madisonville community. My concern is moving the 4 preschool classrooms out of the building. It would be a terrible waste not to utilize that space in John P. Parker School. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Frost. Next, we have Nancy Hicks, followed by Ashley Garland, followed by Veronica Searcy.
Hi, my name's Nancy Hicks. I'm a grandma of a student that went to John P. Parker. for 8 years, actually. And when I started hearing all the changes that they want to make on this, it really concerns me for the children, because we watched John P. Parker through all those years make changes each year to strive for making things better for the students and also the families, which helps the students. And these changes, if they separate it out, you're going to be starting over in a new location. It doesn't mean they won't get up to that standard, but it's going to put everything back when you already have a thing in place that supports the children and the families perfectly. And so it just concerns me that is something that might happen. I think they would benefit to look at leaving things the same and guiding other schools to look at John P. Parker and make the same changes. And another thing, I've heard that they have concerns, and not anything racial, but of parents being afraid to have their kids go there because of a black, white, or different race. And I want to say to any of those people that are worried about that, if they would reach out to some of us that have been involved with that school for years, they're not going to hear any of that. And I would be happy for you to give my phone number out to anyone that has questions, because I got heavily involved with the school and I love it. And my grandson would still go there now if he could. But unfortunately, you get kicked out at a certain age. But just please think about it.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ashley Garland, followed by Veronica Searcy, followed by Shondale Thomas.
Hi, I'm Ashley Garland, intervention specialist and teacher and parent at John P. Parker. Both of my children attend there. My comment is in relation to the inequitable marketing that's been pushed out on social media in regards to Bramble and John P. Parker. Being that John P. Parker is not filled to capacity, there should have been marketing and engagement from the district for enrollment consideration. Since June, there have been 12 Facebook posts related to Bramble, whether it was encouraging people to attend a community engagement meeting or to enroll in preschool. John P. Parker is not at capacity for preschool, and yet there was no engagement from the district promoting our school and our programming. Since June on Facebook, there was 0 district posts promoting John P. Parker. And at the July ad hoc meeting, we were told there would be 4 classrooms for preschool serving 80 students. So there was such a need for seats on the east side. However, the last enrollment number that I was made aware of was 15 students. And we would have gladly welcomed them to the John P. Parker family. You could have taken the $3 million that was spent out of the general fund to purchase the inadequate and under-enrolled building to better market your under-enrolled schools that are already thriving. We should be in the business of funding existing learning spaces and students and not funding empty assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garland. Next, we have Veronica Searcy, followed by Shondale Thomas, followed by Tom, I think it's Fiorini, and if I messed that up, I apologize.
I am Veronica Searcy, formerly Cotton. I am a retired CPS teacher and currently an LLC partner with John P. Parker. During my 33 years of service, I was fortunate enough to hold a position of instructional coach and to be a part of an innovative team of demonstration coaches. Each of these positions allowed me to have access and insight to most all of the elementary schools in the district. Today, I'm here to speak on behalf of John P. Parker School, where I was blessed to be housed as the demonstration coach. After the demonstration coaches positions were discontinued, I was offered a job at John P. Parker and decided to make it my home school, where I remained until I retired in 2021. But as I mentioned before, I'm still a partner with John P. Parker. It was during that time that I nicknamed John P. Parker the best kept secret in CPS. I said all of this to say John P. Parker stakeholders, including staff, students, volunteers, and surrounding community, have made tremendous progress in the last decade or more to achieve their current status of 4 stars. I realize that change is inevitable and children are resilient. They are still bouncing back from the COVID years and need some stability. And due to my experience at John P. Parker, I can only speak from what I know. It takes time and effort to build a learning environment that strives to meet the needs of all students and build a positive rapport with the community. I also understand that you have a job to do, and it's not just politics and procedures, but I'm not sure if you have considered the number of lives this will impact or how many years it will take to recover if they recover at all. I'm asking that you revisit the options to see if there's any other way that John P. Parker can remain a K-6 school and continue to thrive in a system that believes in students first. If it's already fixed, please don't break it.
Thank you, Ms. Searcy. Next is Shondell Thomas, followed by Tom Fiorini, followed by Teresa Langford.
Good afternoon. My name is Shondell Thomas. I am the after-school program coordinator, represent Kennedy Heights Art Center in partnership with John P. Parker School. I have a after-school program that we call the Create Club, where we teach social emotional learning as well as arts. We use arts mixed with the social emotional learning to help develop students' communication skills and also just their development overall. I am in the past, I've worked through CPS as a paraprofessional in K-8 schools and K-6 schools. And the difference in both, it's very different. When it comes to the developmental style of K-8 schools, I just feel like the schools, the 7th and 8th graders don't develop the way that they should transitionally. So when it comes to programs that I run for K-6, the transition style for development is, it just allows for a better transition developmentally. So I asked the board to consider if we don't have schools that set up K-6 programs like mine, it'll be harder for them to exist, and it'll be harder for us to help the students transition socially. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Next, we have Tom Fiorini, followed by Teresa Langford, followed by Dr. Martha Hendricks.
I am Tom Fiorini, the CEO of the Cincinnati Sports Club, located in the Cincinnati Public School District. I'm here to encourage you, the board, to keep kindergarten through 6th grade at John P. Parker. For more than 20 years, I have volunteered at John P. Parker. I teach a weekly program reinforcing character, values, and habits. My first introduction to Parker was only with 4th grade students. Parker was a much different school then. The school today does not resemble that school from 20 years ago. Today, I arrive in the school with no loud voices or yelling. The big change was a strong principal who set the tone, established a culture, chose the right staff, developed and empowered her team, and sought help from the community. The principal, Dr. Mack, has established a growth mindset culture. Dr. Mack informed me that what I was teaching was a growth mindset. Today, every student, teacher, and support staff know and recite the school pledge every morning, which is a self-affirmation of a growth mindset. They also recite their shared values of being respectful, responsible, and safe. I don't believe you can achieve that cultural alignment and buy-in if the K through 3rd graders are removed from the school. Today, in addition to the 4th graders, I instruct kindergartners. When the 4th graders hear the lesson 4 years later, they are bought into the teaching. They are prepared to give me real-life examples of the lessons we teach, such as persistence, delayed gratification, and gratitude, to name a few. Achieving a strong, positive culture takes years of talking the talk and walking the walk. The awards and success of Parker were not an overnight phenomenon. Like most organizations that achieve excellence in a day-to-day, it is a day-to-day grind. Unfortunately, it can be destroyed in a very short period of time. As Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Teresa Langford, followed by Dr. Hendricks, followed by Josh Ulrich.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Langford. I'm a parent of a 2nd grader from John P. Parker School. I'm not a public speaker, so first of all, I would like to mention, though, that I don't actually live in the community of Madisonville. I live in Oakley. My neighborhood school is technically Hyde Park Elementary. But my son began his school at John P. Parker because Hyde Park doesn't have pre-K. So once we started pre-K at John P. Parker, he did a year and a half there. And as a family, we became part of the John P. Parker family and requested that our son continue his education at John P. Parker because of the atmosphere, because of the community, because of what John P. Parker represents for the entire community within CPS. And because I'm not a public speaker, I'm going to read a statement that my wife and I wrote together for this event. Our son thrives at John P. Parker. He's attended since pre-K. It hasn't been easy for him as he has needed a lot of behavioral support since he has behavioral disabilities. Changing the school environment would undo years of work that teachers and intervention specialists and staff at John P. Parker have accomplished. And I do mean years of work that these teachers and staff have done. It's not fair to any educator, staff, or parent or family connected to John P. Parker if CPS chose to dismantle the current school structure. Our son is an elopement risk, and in the area and space that John P. Parker sits in, that makes it much safer for him. Whereas if they moved him to Bramble, the school on Bramble, it would be not nearly a safe environment for him.
Thank you very much.
As again, he is, okay, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Hendricks, followed by Josh Ulrich, followed by Sue Maggard.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Martha Hendricks. I'm a professor of education, and I'm currently the LSDMC chair for John P. Parker. I have been an LSDMC chair for Madisonville Elementary Schools off and on for 30 years. So I know what I'm talking about. When Dr. Mack became principal at John P. Parker, the school had been in school improvement for 7 years. School improvement was a federal designation in which the government paid parents to send their students elsewhere. So every year, the last day of school, we would have a bunch of parents enroll their children into our schools so they could get the vouchers, thereby impoverishing the ones who were left. First, by ensuring the safety of all students and staff, and then by building a loving, dedicated staff. Dr. Mack and the staff have transformed the school. Parker was only one of 5 elementary schools in the district to earn 4 stars on their report card. That's 4 out of 5 stars. The other schools are Kilgore, which is 70% white, 8% students with disabilities, and 13% economically disadvantaged. Hyde Park, 71% white, 11% students with disabilities, and 14% economic disadvantages. Fairview, 50% black, 37% white, 14% students with disabilities, and 42% economically disadvantaged. The only school close to our demographics is Covedale, and they're not that close. 56% black, 30% white, 18% have disabilities, and 99% are economically disadvantaged.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say that Parker has 92% black?
Thank you very much. Next, we have Josh Ulrich, followed by Sue Maggard, followed by Anidra Smith.
Good evening. I'm Josh Ulrich. I'm a business owner in Madisonville for the past 5 years. I'm also on the executive board of the Business Chamber in Madisonville and the Community Council, and recently a Madisonville resident. Tonight I'm here as a parent of a John P. Parker preschooler. We left the Lakota School District, and we left a large amount of politics, overt racism, censorship. We left for a walkable community here in Madisonville, diverse, very welcoming to me and my family. My daughter, from our first trip to John P. Parker, was thrilled to be there, They've got a beautiful self-enclosed preschool program with multiple classrooms, their own play set. Every teacher and student has been welcoming to my family. My daughter has grown, we believe, socially and academically. Our teachers' involvement has been phenomenal. She recognized a audiology issue with our daughter. She was not ignoring us, it turns out. My trip here is in support of John P. Parker remaining a preschool. I would like to see the one-sided and very pointed survey be disregarded and redone correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ulrich. We have next Sue Maygard, followed by Anidra Smith, followed by John Reeves.
Hi, I'm Sue Maggard. I'm an assistant director for John P. Parker tutoring program called Parker Kids Club in sponsorship with Armstrong Chapel. We've been partnered with John P. Parker Elementary for 18 years, since 2005. We've seen tremendous changes. The administration and staff have proactively pulled in other organizations to really look for at-risk kids and figure out how to boost those kids and make them successful. And we've seen results. The program that I'm part of, the Parker Kids Club Tutoring, provides one-on-one weekly tutoring. We also have an enrichment club so that we have activities for our kids from the time that school gets out till 3:30, and then an hour of tutoring. We also partner with Chris Collinsworth Foundation to provide chess club during that time for the school. We target 2nd through 6th graders. They are all at risk. They are all at the reduced or free school lunch level. We're recommendations from teachers and administrators for the students that we bring in. And then we also try to work with those families. We have one-on-one tutoring so we can have emotional bonds between our tutors and our students, and we see that every year. Sometimes we have siblings and cousins that have come back in the same family for year after year, and we see the connections that the tutors have. They still ask about their tutors. They ask if they come back after 8th grade and come to visit the tutoring program. And that's all, that would not be possible without the support of the staff and the administration looking for ways to make these kids' lives better. We also offer a summer program. We've sent boxes of educational material and games and supplies to kids in the summer. We offer a couple of connection events for families. We invite our Parker Kids Club students to church events. We've sponsored Madisonville Braves. We help with community grants. It's just a great program. I'd hate to see the school be disbanded.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Anidra Smith, followed by John Reeves, followed by Luke Blocher.
Hi, my name is Anidra Smith. I currently I'm raising 2 grandkids who have attended John P. Parker. My grandson thrives at John P. Parker, and he started there unable to read. He is now in the 6th grade, reading at a 6th grade level due to the support from Dr. Mack and the teachers. I ask that John P. Parker can stay the same the way it is, and that hopefully we can get a middle school that can help the middle school students where they're not thrown in with high school and they're not thrown in with primary, but they do really need their own school. The support that the teachers and Dr. Mack give from John P. Parker, I can't even relate how phenomenal it is. I still get support for a 10th grader who is no longer in John P. Parker, but the teacher still called to support her. So I'm asking that changes can be made to affect middle school and John P. stay just as it is.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Next, we have John Reeves, followed by Luke Blocher, followed by Teresa Hoelle, and I apologize for not pronouncing that correctly.
Hi, thanks for the time tonight. My name's John Reeves, and I'm the parent of students at the Clifton Area Neighborhood School. And as you may or may not know, our school is running out of space and could run out of space as early as the next school year. What I understand is we don't quite have a plan yet to how we handle that space next year. So I'm here to ask the board to intervene, to align all stakeholders to a high-level plan by the end of this year in December. Now, I'd like to take a minute to explain why we're so excited about this school and hopeful for your help. It was started with a goal to embrace the diversity of our neighborhoods and to deliver top-notch academics. And now in less than 6 years, I think it's delivered on both of those things. Our school is incredibly diverse across race, religion, economic background, and we have multiple staff, students, and families who identify across the LGBTQ spectrum. On top of that, the school has delivered academically. According to last year's Ohio State test, Cannes was the #3 rated neighborhood elementary school across the district, and it was the highest rated neighborhood elementary school that qualified as Title I, which I think is incredible in just about less than 6 years. Which brings me back to my ask today. According to a study done by our principal in LSDMC, we're going to run out of space for primary classrooms and other services next year. And we think that December timeline is so critical because we think those 9 months until next school year will be critical to develop the detailed plans and any construction that might be needed. On top of that, if nothing is done, we think the path of least resistance might be to subdivide a unique theater space on our 3rd floor. Unfortunately, we don't have a dedicated gym space, so the students need that a few days a week for gym, and we use it as our community building space. So the 3 things I'd like you to remember from what I shared tonight were, 1, that Cannes is a successful neighborhood school, that the results, because of that results, we're running out of space, and we're asking for your help to look for space outside of our 4 walls.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Next, we have Luke Blocher, followed by Teresa, followed by our one online speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President, and it's good to see you all here. My name is Luke Blocher. I am a former Kansas LSDMC member, chair of our facilities subcommittee, and most importantly, as of this year, a parent of 3 kids at Kansas. As John said, Kansas is a success story, and it's due to the support of the previous board and this board in investing in a new neighborhood school that combined 3 great historic neighborhoods. And as John mentioned, in these 6 to 7 years since we started with a class of 5 kids at a different location, we're now running out of space. And I think part of that was because we didn't know, all of us collectively, would this work? Would people show up? Would people choose to attend the school? And they have, and it's working to serve an incredibly diverse, incredibly exciting community of kids. As John mentioned, 45% free or reduced lunch from all different incredible backgrounds. It's a wonderful place to be. So let's build on this success. Let's not let space constraints that can be addressed linger too long in a way that will hinder the possibilities. A couple little bits of background for you all to know. We've been doing work on this for a while. We formed a committee 2 years ago to study the space, to make recommendations. Last fall, the LSTMC formally voted to request more space. We put together a document, was pretty comprehensive around that, shared it with the administration. We have been having back and forth with the administration since then. We also had the Clifton Town meeting in the spring of last year, vote to endorse this idea. Whatever happens there from a physical standpoint is going to have to be commented on by that community council because it's in that neighborhood. They are on record supporting this. And we are here, as John mentioned, to say, and we're going to keep coming here to say, we need this space. We're requesting your support to help make this happen. We are working with the administration specifically on the issue of accessing the Rawson Farms house next door potentially. And we appreciate that coordination and help. But I want to make clear that that doesn't solve the permanent long-term space issues that we have there. We request and encourage your help to move to that permanent solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Teresa, followed by our online speaker, followed by Julie Sellers.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. It's Teresa Helly. No problem, Mr. Lindy. My name is Teresa Helly, and my family and I reside in Clifton. And I just want to thank you first for the support from CPS and your administration for creating CANS. It has been such a joy for our community in so many ways, and I'm grateful that now our own daughter is in kindergarten at CANS and is really thriving. And it's the type of environment we really were hoping to have for her, and we're lucky that it's right here in our own neighborhood school. we really believe in cans in our home, and that's why I recently joined the LSDMC for cans to continue the work that other families and neighborhood volunteers have done in partnership with CPS. I just want to share that in addition to what John and Luke shared, that our community council is in support of finding a solution to meet the growing demand and expanding needs as CANS has continued to expand from the initial 4 or 5 kindergartners that first year 7 years ago to where we are today at over 300 students. That's because it's been, moving and achieving the goal of, as each rising grade comes up, that we've now reached that sixth grade as we've been adding each grade. So we're really just seeking to partner with you to develop a solution to have this growing space constraint to be addressed so we can continue to build on the great momentum that we have achieved in partnership with CPS. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have next our online speaker this evening, followed by Julie Sellers.
Yes, one online speaker, Jennifer Myrie from NAAC. Go ahead, Ms. Myrie.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, School Board President, President Lindy, School Board members, Superintendent Wright, and its leadership. I would like to publicly acknowledge and thank Woodward Career Technical High School Principal Sam Yates for his hospitality and his warmness at our first annual NAAC Education Summit held on September 30th. It was a wonderful event. We met our expectations for that event, and we look forward to holding another event next year around the same time. And also thank you to Superintendent Wright and her leadership team for ensuring that were in place. About a year ago, the NAACP of Cincinnati endorsed the levy. We had a conversation with Superintendent Wright with conditions. We have still yet to hear from Cincinnati Public Schools about certain specific conditions that we asked. We asked to hear about student-focused promotion and graduation rates, academic progress, discipline referrals, and development of the Public Safety Academy. Although I do know those things have been discussed at board meetings, we have not had anyone from Cincinnati Public Schools address the NAACP, nor have we heard about staff and community-focused issues with hiring, retention, and parent engagement. I am here again this evening, as I have been for the past year and a half, opening the door and extending an invitation to Superintendent Wright, anyone from her leadership team, and the school board to attend one of the NAACP meetings to share this data with our collective. Thank you for your time. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you. Our last speaker for this evening is CFT President Julie Sellers. For people, again, who are not often with us, the contract between the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers and the district grants the president of the union the right to speak at any meetings. And there is a tradition of that time being both at the end of the hearing of the public and without the 2-minute time limit.
Thank you so much. Good evening to the board, superintendent, and treasurer. I just have a couple of things this evening that I would like to bring to your attention. As we begin to move forward working on the budget and the cuts that we are going to have to make next year, our one plea and concern is that our students in schools are the main focus, and the cuts to the budget will not impact student programming. I'm sure you heard this evening all the positives that are happening in our district, and we want to make sure that those programs are able to remain in our district. As a board, I hope that you are reaching out to the city of Cincinnati because they have employees in our district who they're not our employees, we just fund them. So I hope that you are reaching out to the city, which CPS currently reimburses the city for with the crossing guards and the health department nurses. Those are two big, huge money issues for us, and I just read in the Business Courier that the city was trying to determine what they had $10 million and what were they going to what were they going to use that for? Well, they could pay for the nurses and they could pay for the crossing guards since they are their employees, and historically they've always paid that. And that now we are losing so much money to the tax abatements that I think it's time for the city to step up to help make us whole. And it's also the board's job to provide adequate funds to support our schools. So we have many success stories, and we want to make sure that the funding is available for those programs to continue. But I do believe that the city should be reaching out to help us fund the nurses and the crossing guards, since the district does not have any control over their scheduling or pay or staffing levels. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With no other speakers tonight for hearing of the public, we will keep moving with our agenda. We have a fairly short agenda this evening, and at the risk of my colleagues throwing something at my head for jinxing this, I think this might be a relatively swift meeting. Mr. Morosky, as we move to resolutions, we're going to come back because Mr. Morosky is not here. It's going to be a very short meeting. Is it on which topic, Dr. Moffitt?
Yes, I just want to apologize for the people on this side. We're probably giving you a scowl, and I apologize because we cannot see. The lights are impacted tonight. So I just wanted to, if you're getting the mean mug from myself, the superintendent, or Treasurer Wagner, it's because we really can't see you. So I just wanted to apologize for that. But thank you. They'll be fixed next time.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. We have Mr. Morosky back, which is excellent. We're going to move to what looks like a very long set of things, but may in fact be fairly swift. We have I'm not seeing any minute approval on our agenda this evening.
Yes. Oh, they took them.
Yeah, I think we're still cleaning those up. I'm on the agenda on board docs. If I'm on the wrong one, someone please tell me. Mr. Morosky, would you give some context on the first item under resolutions?
I would. Thanks, President Lindy. Thanks for waiting for me. So this is an exciting one. We have a resolution, and it does look very long. The long and short of it is a resolution approving our revised bylaws, which we have been working on in policy committee for about 7 or 8 months now. And I'd like to thank my colleagues, Ms. Weinberg and Ms. Bolton, for all of the work, and every other colleague sitting up here with me. We've taken everyone's input. We've discussed each one of these bylaws at a public school board meeting. We've agreed, we've disagreed, and we've all come to consensus on here is what we can support. At least the last time we spoke, this is what we said we could support. Out of the 6 years I've been on this board and the 4 years I've been chair of policy, I think this is probably the biggest undertaking that I've been a part of, and I'm really, really proud of the work us 7 have done, and it feels like a big team effort. And so I present the resolution, and I'll read it in full so everybody knows. We've also reorganized the bylaws so that they make more sense. Thank you, Ms. Bolton. I present a resolution amending board policy bylaws 0000, purpose of bylaws and protocol, 0100, definitions, 0110, identification, rescinded, 0120, powers and ethics, rescinded, because they've been put somewhere else. We didn't rescind our powers and ethics bylaw entirely. We put it where it made more sense. 0130, powers and functions, renamed. 0140, board member responsibilities and ethics, renamed. 0150, organization and procedures, renamed. 0160, meetings. 0170, communications, renamed. I present this resolution and these bylaws as written.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Is there a second on that motion? Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Is there any discussion on the resolution amending the bylaws? Hearing none, Ms. Wagner, would you call the vote, please?
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt? Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. I'm tempted to move on, but I just want to publicly thank Mr. Morosky and his committee for the work that's gone into this. This really has been since January, and we're now almost at the end of the calendar year, and it's been a lot. And I just want to say thank you for all of that effort and work. And as we have, I think sadly, one of our board members retiring at the end of this year, so we will be welcoming at least one new board member. My hope is that as that person starts, these bylaws create a clearer picture of what our rules of operating are, And just want to thank again the team and wish good things for the future, even if not all of us will be here. Mr. Morosky, did you want to?
It means a lot, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank General Counsel Dan Hoying, Kathy Crable, and Stephanie Scott in his office, who all come to our meetings and helped us keep track of all this. So thank you. It's a big deal.
Thank you. So now we'll move to item 2. And before I ask for a motion to introduce this resolution, Ms. Jones, did you had reached out about some context about this one?
Yes. I could do it now or during discussion?
Yeah, would you provide that now?
Okay. Well, here's the context. This comes up every year. One of the things that happens, the Capital Conference that OSBA offers occurs in the fall. So they prepare for it all year for the fall. But when they're asking for appointments of committees and delegates and things like that, it doesn't align with our January organizational meeting. And so with this particular resolution, historically, as the OSBA Board of Trustee representative, that person, and over the past 3 years, that's been me, I have served in that capacity as the delegate for the OSBA annual delegate meeting. The difference is this year they changed the procedure, and I caught it at almost the deadline. So I had to literally give a name, which I did that with the assistance of Treasurer Wagner, and I gave my name so that we'd have a name there. So the intention tonight, I wanted to share that and put it in context for you, because the intention is to name somebody, and of course I'm going to introduce myself for that position. But if people, disagree on one another appointment, that would be fine too. So I am presenting the resolution on that. Shall I begin?
Please.
Okay. I'd like to present a resolution appointing an official delegate to the Ohio School Boards Association's 2023 Capital Conference. I am presenting myself, Carolyn Jones, as the appointee, and hope for your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Any discussion on the resolution?
Yes.
Yes, Ms.
Can I
Jones.
add for discussion that this is something, as I transition out and out of the OSBA slot, I will be talking with the president and our staff about the organizational meeting, because there are a couple of things regarding OSBA appointments that need to change in terms of how we do our business. So I'll be doing that.
Sounds excellent. Any other discussion on the resolution? Dr. Moffitt.
So I just want to, in a comedic way, point out that former Vice President, President Jones, this would be your last Capital Conference in representing us as a district. So I think this is only fitting that you kind of go out as a delegate for this last, how many days? 66, 68 days?
68.
68 days. She's on the countdown. So I think
probably 8 or 9 more meetings.
Gotcha. Just pointing that out.
Just pointing that out.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Any other discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, Ms. Wagner, would you call the vote, please?
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. Last resolution, Ms. Weinberg.
Yes, I will be presenting a resolution approving students eligible for subsidy reimbursement in lieu of transportation for the 2023-2024 school year, and I submit this resolution as written.
Thank you, Ms. Weinberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Any discussion on the motion or resolution, excuse me? Ms. Wagner, would you call the vote, please?
Bolton?
Aye.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. Moving right along, we're going to enter the superintendent of schools section. Do we have any retirements to announce this evening, Ms. Weinberg?
Yes, President Lindy, we have 2 individuals. So I would like to first acknowledge our civil service. We have Michael Brucato. I do apologize if I'm not saying the last name correctly, but a paraprofessional from Robert A. Taft Information Technology High School. And we also have Martha Johnson, a custodian too, from Hughes STEM High School, We would just like to thank these two individuals for their service and their commitment to the district. And of course, we wish them well in their endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendations this evening?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any discussion on the superintendent of schools recommendations this evening? Ms. Wagner, would you call the vote, please?
Ms. Bolton? Aye. Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt the report of the treasurer this evening?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Any discussion on the report of the treasurer this evening?
The revised.
The revised, is that a friendly amendment, Ms. Bolton? What's on the floor is the revised treasurer's report. Any other discussion?
Sorry, who was the second?
The second was Mr. Morosky.
Thank you.
Would you call the vote, please?
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. We have no board matters this evening as we're in part 2 here. Under inquiries or updates, I know I have one. There may be some others also. Any other inquiries or updates? We'll start with Mr. Morosky, followed by Ms. Jones.
An update, maybe an announcement. I don't always know the difference. But in policy committee, just a teaser for everybody. We have talked to the last 2 board meetings at the request of Ms. Weinberg, and thank you for bringing this up again. Looking at our policies regarding student fees and those things related to that. And the treasurer's office has done an awesome job going through kind of an audit, for lack of a better word, just looking at student fees school by school, because some schools have their own fees. We have district-wide fees. They're a different protocol. Some students don't pay, some pay a little, et cetera. You get the point. Ms. Bolton and I at our meeting on Friday, Ms. Weimer couldn't be there, but we had it on the agenda again in her stead, as she had requested it be there again. And the idea came up, it's not for discussion tonight, but at the next board meeting and board matters, we talked a little bit at the last meeting. We would like to have a discussion with the board about the idea of not having fees, period. Obviously, we have to find a lot of money. Those have paid attention to our meetings. We're talking about looking for $65 million already. Adding new dollars is not exactly a popular and or exciting, it's a daunting conversation, but we felt it was important to have it. We're looking at the policies themselves and what might need to change. At least I have one more meeting as policy chair for sure. And we'll see what happens after that, but one more for sure. And we'll look at those policies again, but just wanted to give colleagues, I told Ms. Bolton and the treasurer that I would bring this up tonight just so people weren't unawares. When you see it on the agenda, what we will be talking about is the possibility, and Ms. Wagner has wonderful numbers for us that are scary, but also exciting about what it might look like to not require fees of any of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Next, an inquiry or update was from Ms. Jones.
Yes, thank you. Again, this is another update for regarding an OSBA process. I asked our staff to send every board member the email that is requesting any nominations for the various OSBA committees. And again, their process doesn't align with ours, but my recommendation is if you are interested in serving on one of those listed committees, I would suggest you go ahead and fill out the application. If you get accepted, it can then be presented to the board in January for the official appointment. Now, a couple of you may already serve on those committees. You just need to check out to make sure that your term isn't up, because you don't have to resubmit if you're on there and you have another year or two to serve on your term. But I wanted to remind everybody, the goal is to, and I have heard this from OSBA, they're happy that CPS is part of OSBA. And so the more we can get board members involved in that, the better off we'll be, and we'll know what's going on a little more at the state level. So I encourage you to complete those applications if you're interested.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Other inquiries or updates? Ms. Bolton.
Yes, I'm presenting this tonight as a follow-up to our Finance Committee meeting and a question that's been posed by the treasurer and the superintendent regarding guidance needed from the board as the treasurer and superintendent, but particularly the treasurer, present and develop as is required by law, a 5-year forecast, which we will have to be voting on in November, and we only have one meeting in November. And as we are faced with the challenges presented with as a result of the diminishing revenue based upon the end of the COVID funding, as some people refer to ESSER as, the treasurer is asking for some guidance from us, in part tonight. This is not a vote, but it is guidance that is needed in order to continue to develop options, or one option of the 5-year forecast. And I'll let the treasurer kind of frame the question as to what's being asked, and I try to explain it. I think it's pretty clear, and it's a rather daunting question that has to be answered for the guidance that the treasurer needs for the 5-year forecast. If I can share, if we can just refer to the treasurer, that would be great. Thank you.
So just quickly, every school district in the state of Ohio has to file 2 cash forecasts on the general fund twice a year, once in May and in November. Has to be adopted by the board in a public meeting, we are scheduled for November 6th to do the full presentation. But as we shared with Finance Committee, we are facing a unique challenge this year. Rob, are you bringing it up, please? We have two options. Traditionally, we take the historical, we forecast our revenues based on the state funding formula and property tax collections. And then on the expenditure side, we typically look at the trends, the spending trends, and then for individual line items, we'll add some inflationary costs based on experiences. And as you know, the purpose of the forecast is to monitor your solvency, cash solvency, and to help you with future planning. And in May, the forecast assumes a $28 million ESSER cliff to return to the general fund. So there you go. Here are 2 options. We can follow the traditional assumption where we take use our inflationary estimates. Excuse me. We can update the cliff as to what we know are the $86 million of recurring costs right now that were in the fiscal year 24 budget. But what that does is it projects a cash deficit in fiscal year 25, which we are wanting to be as transparent and open as possible and want to make sure everybody's in the same page, because we don't want to overly concern people with information, the wrong information. So what happens if we file a cash deficit and within that first 3-year window, either the current year or the 2 preceding years, ODE will send us a letter and making us come up with a reduction plan in order to get back into balance. Option B, because we are starting to kick off this year's budget and we have a lot of decisions to make, we had agreed to go back to a balanced budget to our revenues. If we force the forecast to do that, we can have positive cash flow through the whole forecast period of fiscal year 28. But that means we have to agree to that expenditure, the lower expenditure value that matches the projected revenue. And so that it's 2 different philosophies. And I'm wanting to hear from the board which direction we want to go into.
Thank you, Treasurer Wagner, and thank you for framing the 2 very clear options on which you would like our feedback. I greatly appreciate it. Board members, we can go in any order. Would people like to weigh in on option A versus option B? Ms. Bolton.
I'll just I'll just get started with one standard that came out of the Finance Committee meeting. And that standard was that whichever option we choose, we be very transparent about the option. So that whether that is done in notes, whether that's done in presentation, that nobody is trying to hide what it is that we're trying to do. So either option can be done transparently and presented to the public and understood by the board and allows the board to continue its work. The second thing that particularly was mentioned in Finance Committee was that if we were to choose the option that would show the actual cuts, not the actual cuts, but the change of revenue, so to speak, it does not mean for public consumption or internal consumption that any cuts have already been determined. That is not the case. There have been some recommendations, there are options, there are some obvious things along the way, but depending upon which option, either option, it is clear that there are no cuts, specific cuts yet, but we do have a number regarding dollars that we probably have to work toward. So I don't know if that is a fair enough summary. If I said something wrong, I would, it needs to be added to. I'd appreciate if the treasurer would do so.
Right. So my concern about doing it the traditional way is that we're presenting a forecast and we're already starting to work on a balanced budget, that we are presenting kind of older information because we haven't agreed to any of the cut yet, but we've agreed to a dollar value or the philosophy to not go over our annual estimated revenues because our cash reserves have declined. So option A, I feel like might mislead people into thinking, you know, we're going to crash and burn because it's going to show a very ugly cash deficit in fiscal year 25, which we're already starting to address. It just is in progress and not finalized yet. Option B is just going to take a very strong commitment to not letting that budget grow above our annual revenues. But you're right, no cuts have been agreed to or anything. Everything is just idea forming right now.
If I could respond to, if I might, on that, we have done that before where we have shown those dollars, if you will, and had ODE come to us, and as you described earlier, they required us at that point in time to figure out what the situation is and how to handle it. I don't know that the full board, which is why we're here tonight talking about this or getting to some kind of decision as soon as possible. I don't know that the whole board has agreed to limiting our resources or limiting our, I should say, our expenditures to our revenue for this coming year. I know that we've done that in the past, rightfully so, and there's good reason to do that, but I don't know that this board has had that discussion for this coming year as we had it for the last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Vice President Craig? Sorry, Superintendent Z, were you also trying to share a piece?
After Vice President Craig, I would like for our treasurer to also just clarify as well how this connects to the ESSER funding that goes away, so that as we look at these numbers in terms of what's on the bottom line right now, based on the old forecast is for May, we need to update in November, but what that overall number would look like as well in terms of option B.
Thank you very much. Vice President Craig.
And so I think, again, I think this is a great conversation we had during our Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee meeting. One thing I wanted to add to the conversation with this, and part why I actually support option B a little more so, is the fact that the other ways of driving revenue within this process won't be reflected within our forecast at this point. So like, even if we said we were going to spend more and grab revenue from various different ways, that would be in our explanation, but not necessarily within our forecast. And I think we have to somewhat level with the acknowledgement that we may change our forecast in May based on things we may take steps on. And I know specifically the treasurer referenced during our meeting that, for instance, if you say, okay, we're revenue, levy revenue or something to that effect, that can't be part of how you close the hole on your forecast if we did option A. So I think one of the things that, at least in my head, is just recognizing and showing that we are being fiscally smart and sound, even if that does mean we're still going to explore other options and other opportunities to bring in revenue, because we do also, we're having this conversation in the same time we're also recognizing our facilities and other things that we're going to need to consider what our fiscal options are for those things in the future.
Thank you, Vice President. Craig, was there a piece there, Treasurer Wagner, you wanted to respond to?
So option B assumes that the 86 million in the ESSER cliff has either been absorbed back into the general fund using our existing revenues or has found an alternative funding source. So currently, this year's budget is 609.9 million. And then we have 86 million of recurring ESSER expenses as they sit in fiscal year 24. The superintendent's been working on a plan to present and shared some ideas with the board, but that plan hasn't finalized yet. And so I left it at the 28 million that was assumed in May. But so option B just says, okay, this is our revenue for next year. That's what our budget's going to be for next year. So that will maintain $30 million in cash. And the $30 million cash balance will only take us through 4 weeks of operation. It's not a very big reserve.
Thank you, Treasurer Wagner. Other comments on option A versus option B? Folks who've not gone yet. I'll share. Oh, Dr. Moffitt.
So Jen, I know we also spoke a little bit about in budget, or I asked the question about writing a letter with the written plan to ODE. What does that, is there any flexibility with regard to that? And I know you gave an explanation. So option A talks about requiring a written plan. Can you talk about what would happen if we did submit a plan and it needed to change? Is there any flexibility with that so that the other members can understand that explanation?
So the written plan has to be a reduction plan to balance. You cannot use, like Board Member Craig said, you cannot use a new levy money as your answer. They won't accept that. And then you have to file a new forecast once you get that written plan in together.
Thank you, Treasurer Wagner. I'll share just for my part, I like option B better than option. The reason, there are several reasons, but I think option B feels very in line with the conversation we had as a board back at the work session a couple Saturdays ago. I know there's a lot of work to do to figure out how we do B, but that's why we started in October. And there's important conversations to have on that front in the coming weeks and months. I also think that as I understand option A, if we did option A, we would need to complete yet a separate round of paperwork for the Ohio Department of Education, which would be highly redundant of the work that we are already doing, which doesn't feel like a great use of staff time and staff resources. If I'm wrong on any of that, please share, but if not, I think option B feels like a better call from my perspective.
You're exactly right.
Other comments on A versus B, Mr. Moraski?
I'll just second that. I mean, I like B better because of all the difficult work we're going to have to do next year. And I'll just tag on to what President Lindy said. It's going to be difficult not just soon do all that work with an eye to the future, looking at 28, not just let's get through this year and then the next. And so I like B better.
Ms. Jones, followed by, Ms. Jones.
Yes, very, very brief. I also prefer option B just for the exact reason that it feels, just reading the points, the bullet points on here, it feels like what we discussed previously in terms of our thinking about the direction we want to go with our finances. So that's a little more real to me. And, the Finance Committee, I think, digs a little deeper than that. That's what they're supposed to do. So we aren't privy to that conversation that occurred in Budget and Finance, but this feels more doable and realistic to and aligned with what we previously talked about.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mrs. Weinberg.
I wish that we just had an abundance of money, and that would just be the perfect answer, but we don't. I'll take it out of my piggy bank, exactly. I'm going to go with option B, and That's all that I have to add to that piece.
Thank you, Ms. Weinberg. Ms. Bolden?
Yes, thank you. I think option B, it's never a bad idea to suggest that you try not to budget or spend more than you take in. And so I think that's a reasonable thing, especially in greater tri-state area here. I also do want to make sure that we keep emphasizing that we know we need to make cuts. No cuts have been finalized at all. And the other point is that we keep talking about additional revenue. I hope that the public is not getting to the conclusion that somehow next year there would be a request on the ballot for more monies. We have not discussed that, talked about that, or what have you. In the near future, particularly from a facility standpoint, that's probably somewhere out there. But number one, no cuts have been determined, but it sounds like we have a board that's interested in not spending any more in the general fund than we take in. And it sounds like there's an awareness that we have big decisions to make. Appreciate this kind of unified approach to it.
Thank you, Ms. Bolden. Last call. Any other comments? Dr. Moffitt?
I know we haven't called for a vote, but I'll give my perception on option B as well. I do really want to second what Board Member Bolton said. We talk about, and Board Member Jones, we got into the nitty gritty. So please go back and watch the budget meeting because we dove a little bit deeper into some actual numbers. But we have some big decisions to make that also align with the ad hoc recommendations and the facilities. I think we didn't call it a facilities master plan. We call it like a facilities repair plan. So we need to, I just think we need to do these things at the same time. It's not to do one versus the other, do one and then check it off and do another. We've got some suggestions from the superintendent. We've got some discussions to continue to have, but we also have some big items that we're going to be looking at. And I think it just feels more responsible to spend what we bring in. So that's the part of the fiscal responsibility that I think is our due diligence. But also we need to do things at the same time, kind of like walk and chew gum. We can do that. We can look at the district in totality and make the best decisions. But I do implore the public to please watch the meetings, ask questions, and stay engaged.
Any other comments? Treasurer or superintendent, anything else you all need from us on this front?
I just want to thank the board for the open conversation as we were talking about where we're going next and trying to look at the best proposals to bring to the board as we're talking through all of the conversations. I just want to continue to lift that we do not have the funds that we had from ESSER last year. And and I know the treasurer has been talking about the cliff for a period of time. So I just want to make sure that we lift because we do not have those funds. And we're also the board is making the decision, which makes perfect sense, to make sure that we operate within the funding that we have. Those tough decisions mean something has to go away. And so as we're thinking about that, I just want to keep that on the forefront, that as we're bringing those proposals, as we're having the conversations, we've already started the conversations. We have to do that in order for us to honor the work that we're doing with our teams. We're meeting with our union partners as well. But it is important that we recognize that we cannot keep everything the same and also address the fact that we don't have a pocket of money that we got from the federal government last year over the last 3 years that we just do not have this year. So that's just the only caveat that I would like to add as we're talking about these really tough decisions that we need to make moving forward.
Thank you, Superintendent.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Thank you, Treasurer. Excellent. Alignment is a beautiful thing. Other inquiries or updates? Vice President Craig.
So by now, every member of the board should have received what is a draft version of a new member orientation plan. For those at home, the central idea is we were discussing the fact that we had not had a standardized kind of process to orientate new members of the board. And given that former Vice President Jones is leaving us in 68 days, we did think it was important to put together some type of plan. So I was tasked with doing that. What I put together, and again, just trying to get feedback from other board members on their thoughts on this, is really a three-part process. First is a half-day orientation that would connect up with board staff, the treasurer's office, the general counsel's office, as well as board members, and then make sure everybody gets through the normal processes here at the district. Part of it is providing information that as we always do, but some additional information to each of the board members and each of the any person who becomes a new board member. And then the other part is inviting them to specific meetings, such as coming to a board meeting prior to them taking the position, as well as again, getting the equipment they'll need, other things, looking in offices, that kind of deal that I think all of us who are the last new folks to the board would have loved to have some of as we came in. So I just want to see if there's any feedback on it and, any suggestions or any changes that folks would like to see made.
Thank you, Vice President Craig, for your efforts on this front. Any comments? Ms. Bolton?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think it's a great effort. The two things that were of concern to me. First, let me say, years past, it was a huge thing that we would go through if you were a new member. And over the years, we've lessened that as we go. So I think this kind of harkens back a bit to some of that more traditional view. The two things and maybe I misread it, but the two things were, I didn't see enough reference regarding policy, and maybe I skimmed over that, the awareness or exposure to the existing policies by the board for the new member, incoming member, I should say. The other thing, and nobody will be surprised in me saying this, I didn't feel the need to have Cindy or Ray help do the governance piece. I don't even know if they're going to have a contract by the time the new people come in, or if it should be done among board members rather than them necessarily serving individuals. So those are the two items, the policy piece, and I thought going a little bridge too far on whether or not Great City Schools should tutor an incoming member.
And I know at least for the policy part, in the book that we all received includes the thick binder we all receive also includes the board policies. And so I think that's certainly something that could be covered. I didn't include it as a specific thing on that day of orientation, because also a lot of it is just process and getting people to figure out where things are. I think that is something that can be part of that ongoing conversation. I know, at least my understanding, is that some boards in the past have done like board member mentorship type deal as a transition in, but that is something we certainly add.
Great.
Ms. Jones?
Yes, I understand perfectly where Ms. Bolton is coming from. I think I see a difference between a long-standing relationship with them for this purpose. I think because we are still amidst the Council of Great City Schools contract, for this election in particular, it might be helpful to have the new members sit with them, not necessarily a coaching, but to kind of bring them up to date with the process that we've gone through as a board. So it's more of a teaching than it is coaching. So I would suggest that if it needs to be changed, that we change it around more of teaching and informing them to bring them up to par with kind of where we are now as a board.
I agree with that.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mrs. Weinberg?
After reviewing the sheet, I actually liked a lot of things. And again, with Vice President Craig, I really wish that we would have had that instead of being kind of thrown into the lion's den a little bit that day. But the only thing that I would like to suggest is, I think it was suggested that the new member meet with the acting president. And I just wanted to suggest that possibly it be two board members, the president and a veteran person.
So I actually did modify it based on a suggestion from Mrs. Weinberg to have potentially the board president, but then also another board member there. So at least two board members to have the discussion with the new incoming on that orientation day.
And the only reason why I suggested an additional veteran member was just to probably, give a little bit of historical background information as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weinberg. Any other comments or feedback for Mr. Craig's important work on new board member onboarding? Okay. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to thank the General Counsel's office who put together basically a one-pager for this process as well as the treasurer's office put together great presentation that again are all things that I absolutely wish we had seen as we were walking in the door, but it really helps to explain the role of a board member and from the legal context within the district, but also what are our funding sources and how our funding works from the treasurer side. So I want to thank them as well as the hard work that our staff has always done to put together materials.
Thank you very much. I have one inquiry update about Preschool Promise. Anybody have anything else before I do that one? So you people remember, if we rewind several board meetings ago, there was a charge for Vice President Craig and myself, alongside the Superintendent, Treasurer, and General Counsel, to start meeting with the parallel folks at the Preschool Promise on the updated new master agreement. We have met twice. We provided an update after our first meeting. We've met since then. We wanted to provide an update on our second meeting. The update is fairly short. I'll mention 2 or 3 things. Mr. Craig can tell me if I forgot anything. We're looking for a joint meeting between both boards for the week of December 4th. So please look for an email from the board office in the coming days around some scheduling options. Please know that there was absolutely no good time for this meeting. We looked at every week between now and the end of the calendar, and they were all terrible. This was the least bad week that we could find. So I'm sure that there will be a million challenges. We will solve as many of them as we can, but that was the least terrible option across the 2 groups that we were able to find. And we don't even have a day and a time yet. So that wanted to make sure that we've heard from this group several times. It's important to get the 2 groups together. Want to make sure you know that that's happening. Second, there is some work happening on a proposed new shared vision. There was a shared, Dan has shared this, and we've talked about this in the past. There was a shared vision between CPP and CPS back in 2016. There was a reaffirmation of that shared vision in 2020 when the levy was up for renewal. There is good work happening on the next iteration of that. Mr. Craig, I believe, is working with a member of the CPP board on a proposal. I don't think proposal exists yet, but it's in the works. And just know that that is something we hope we can look at together at that meeting that we have the week of December 4th. Are there other updates you would share from that meeting?
I just think one of the things we reiterated with them is the desire to have these things come back to us in a fuller conversation with regards to, kind of an ongoing thing, because, again, my recognizing that the history of this was that there was regular discussions. The other part to it is that we had the discussion around finding some way to find metrics to be shared between us, so that we also can tell people how well things are going and make sure that we're utilizing folks and spending the money in a fiscally sound way. And so there's some big issues that are still going to be things that we have to kind of talk through, as both our board talk through, as well as talk to in the collective. Again, around some of the ways that we're looking at going forward. I will also stress that we did stress to them that the recognition that there is a limited pot of money that we have. I think it's a point that the treasurer's probably been making at their finance meetings for a while now, but that we have to make sure we're doing what we can in the best way that we can, that recognizes what we committed ourselves to doing when we started and kind of where we go forward.
Thank you, Vice President Craig. Any questions about that meeting from the group? Ms. Bolton?
I think the meeting is a good idea. I don't have a problem with that, but I would like to, prior to that meeting, when we're all here together, have we or has the Preschool Promise folks, have they presented a new draft, not the shared vision, but of the agreement?
Not really. I mean, I think there's a version they shared with us that has a whole bunch of blanks in it. So I think there's you said yes, I said no, we may be on different pages, but there was a lot of empty space in it.
They basically shared a clean start to a document. Now, what we have not done yet, and what we got basically not that long ago, is that we have to make our own recommendations based on it. So I think it's something that we should be discussing then the board as to kind of how we want to respond to what they submitted to us.
Yes.
It's not, again, to the president's point, it's not something with some definites in it yet. So there's still some pockets where there other information we'll have to figure out. But yes, there is a document for which we could provide feedback to the general counsel and others who are working with their offices.
Superintendent?
Just for clarification, so two things. One, earlier there was a red line version that was shared with us initially. So outside of that document, there has not been another red line version that has been shared with us. The second set of information, because and if I am incorrect, please share with me, because as a part of the meeting, that was one of the questions that I asked in terms of what is being provided. Is there a red line version of this? So with that, I'm saying there hasn't been, because there has not been another updated red line that's been provided to us other than the initial one that was given to general counsel and that was shared with the board. So is that the same? Or are we in different spaces?
Mr. Craig, followed by, or Vice President Craig, followed by Ms. Bolden.
There is a new started version. So it's not like a red lined up version like we were working from. They restarted a whole new version. To that point, there are stuff in there that I can say right now, we're going to have some discussions around, because we're going to have to make some decisions as to what we respond with. I think that's something that the board should do sooner than later, but there is nothing, it operates from a different starting point than what the previous set of, the previous master agreements versions were starting from.
Ms. Bolden?
Yes, I think that the board needs to see whatever that is, because I know one of the things when we, sent folks to negotiate, properly so, we did say that we wanted to continue to be informed and also be able to give our team the guidance that we need. And I would hate for us to wait until we're all sitting at the table together.
That's fair.
And have some kind of bad experience, because these are the things that you try to arrange prior, so that when you are together, there's a positive movement. Yeah. So I would either make an assignment or make a request that we see what the preschool promise folks have proposed to us, even though it may not be redlining the old general or primary agreement. If they have a proposal for a new agreement at the same time that we're all trying to come up with a shared vision, I think everybody needs to know everything.
And that's fine. I think the group of us that have met were charged with trying to do some work on the ground so that it could move, rather than having the whole thing being negotiated by the whole of both boards. I think that's something we're trying to do. I think the other thing that was a outcome from the first meeting that we had was first to try to get an aligned shared vision from which a new master agreement could follow. There is neither of those yet. And so, but Ms. Bolton, I hear your point around wanting people to feel that they have been able to see things and vet things and weigh in on things before that meeting the week of December 4th. Is that different from what you were saying?
That's just my recollection of when we commissioned the group, that the board and the administration would be aware, and I thought that's what we had decided that we would be doing. I didn't know that we were going to do a shared vision and then arrange an agreement. I think the ball was in their court about a new possibility of a general agreement. And very frankly, it is now a public record, so if we have to make it a request for that, and I don't think we need to. So I think we do need to see what they have proposed, rather than have a car wreck when we have a mutual meeting together.
Dr. Malfa, followed by anybody who's not gone before, followed by Vice President Craig.
So I was all aligned until I maybe have misunderstood what the purpose of the small group meetings were, because I did not know that it was for you all, small groups, to come up with a shared vision. I thought it was meeting to kind of see where we were, to kind of understand the lay of the land, with the intention of always bringing the two together. I do remember Board Member Jones saying that we needed to have the groups together. And I went to their annual meeting and someone on their side even said that we needed to bring the groups together because there was benefit to having full boards discussion. So I don't remember there being a decision that there should be you all, the small groups, deciding on something for everyone else. Thought it was more information gathering, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm.
No decision. I think the charge was exactly as you describe it. When we then met for the first time, something that everybody in the room felt would be helpful was to do a refresh on the shared vision because the previous one had been from 2020. And so the thought was, and if this is not true, we could certainly do something different. The thought was if there could become an updated shared vision that wouldn't exist until it went before this group had a chance to weigh in on it, group had a chance to affirm it or change it. It could create a platform that would make it easier to work through all the details of the master agreement. So that's all. But I did promise, I think, anybody who's not gone yet. So Mrs. Weinberg.
So just to be clear, I thought that the initial charge of the small group was just to hear them out based off of the letter that we received and to kind of hear some of their complaints or to hear what they wanted and then to bring back to report to us and then come together as two groups to then talk about the next steps. So can we clarify that?
Is it on this point, Ms. Jones?
Maybe, I don't know. No.
I'm going to invite my,
Somebody wants to
I don't mean
have my
to,
own thoughts.
no, I've been in the same meeting with the superintendent treasurer, the general counsel, and Mr. Craig, if you want to share your perspective too.
I
Go ahead.
do have a perspective.
What, no, so, excuse me.
I'm after Weinberg.
I wanted to make sure we got a response to Mrs.
Yes.
Weinberg.
Okay.
And so if you were going to respond, I wanted to give you a chance to do that. And then I'll invite Mr.
I'll
Craig to
share
respond.
just a quick response. I think what we are discussing and proposing to do with them is that no decisions, nothing will come out until it comes before our board. We have our chance to discuss it. Then it comes to the larger group. I think what we were tasked to do is, yes, to hear them out and also to bring those points back to the board for the board to make the decision, which is why I think it is fine for us to share the agreement they sent. Now, I will tell you again, I don't think that's anywhere close to where we're going to end up at, but I think it'll maybe help us understand where we go with our shared vision. So that part of the shared vision, as President was saying, was about us getting on the page of whether or not we're doing the same thing now with Preschool Promise that we did when we first started, or whether or not it needs to be something different.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, followed by Superintendent.
I'm a little bit anxious because I'm not quite sure if what I'm going to say is going to make sense, but I'll say it anyway. I don't make sense sometimes, but and I am going to say this. People hate to hear me say this. Sometimes when you go back to the way you used to do things, it works. And I remember when we first started in our relationship with Preschool Promise, we made all of our decisions as a joint body because it was a joint tax levy, right? It was our tax levy, but they were on there, they helped, with it or whatever. The difference now is a lot of the parties are different. So what I think is missing on the group is, other than, I know Jen is on there and Daniel is on there, and I don't know who represents Cincinnati Preschool Promise, but the people are different. They don't have the historical context. They don't have the process for how things worked. But I do remember having many meetings, many of the joint meetings where we sat down and worked on the MOU and the shared vision as an interrelated body. And then we appointed and assigned the work out, the task to do. Now, I said all that to say, my recollection of what this group was going to do was to talk about the context of this MOU or whatever, and then bring it back and presented to the group. The shared vision didn't enter my mind because I think that's something we have to sit at the table with CPP to do that. And so for me, I'm not quite sure what the group is doing. I'm not quite sure if CPP is doing the same thing on their side or what they're doing. I think it's going to be very important for us to do a joint meeting because a lot of what I think we need to do as two parties in this relationship will flow out of that meeting. That's what I think. So, but my understanding was it was to really begin to kind of frame what the context of an MOU would be, what it would be, and we can present it at the joint meeting and talk about it with CPP. But there's lots of different dynamics that have occurred regarding this. But yeah, I guess we got to start somewhere, but that's just kind of my perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Superintendent.
I think just for one more point just so that I have clarity, I think that it's understood that the smaller group was asked to meet with the smaller group from CPP to begin to address some of the information that had been provided to us and how we would begin to have the conversations collectively to move forward. I think one thing that happened, and just from my observation, and maybe someone else that was there can also weigh in here, I think one of the things that happened is when we all came together and began to listen to and look at some of the information that had been discussed in terms of what CPP was looking at versus what was in our last agreement that we had, the one thing that we began to see is that possibly just because of some of the asks, that there may be misalignment in the shared vision because you already had a previous agreement that had worked through what those shared responsibilities were, what the shared understandings were, what would happen versus what wouldn't happen. What apparently occurred from that is even though there was a document that was the guiding protocol for the expectation, that's not what actually happened. And it looks like where the initial breakdown possibly was in the overall understanding of the shared vision, if that was still in alignment with both our board and the CPP board. So I just in hearing the conversation, as I am understanding it, that was the initial portion to then get something down on paper in terms of the shared vision conversation so that we could have dialogue with our board through our president, and then have the greater conversation with the preschool promise board as well to begin to start the conversations around the agreement, because otherwise I don't know that it's in alignment collectively, and we know that just from some of the concerns that we'd already heard. It wasn't necessarily in alignment with the last protocol that we had. So that was just my clarifying portion on it. I think that in thinking through it and looking at the conversations from both sides at this point, and looking at that shared conversation in terms of a shared meeting, I think that the ask or the determination has to be at this point, if that is the place that we're looking to then decide what that agreement is going to be during that time, or a series of meetings that would then look at that agreement.
Thank you, Superintendent. I think that I'll share one piece, and then I'm happy to go back to Ms. Jones. There will be no decisions made on anything until they come to this group, and this group has a chance to weigh in, and this group feels supportive of it. And in addition to that, there will be a chance for both boards to come together that first week of December. I think it'll be helpful and healthy to have that December meeting as a forcing mechanism to try to get as much onto that agenda for discussion and approval as possible. Without a forcing mechanism of a date, I think that just keeps getting kicked back. And we saw that happen. I don't think there any malintent for quite a while after that master agreement expired. And so just to say again in public to everybody, no decisions made before it comes back to this group with everybody having a chance to weigh in and vote on it. And I think having that meeting for both boards on the calendar in December, I think will be good. I think it'll be healthy. I think it's overdue. And I'm excited for that to be something that we can do together. Ms. Jones.
Yes, I think I'm in support of us starting somewhere. Because otherwise we'll keep going back and forth. So I am okay with us starting on what is being suggested, bring that forward or what have you, and then using the platform of the joint meeting to discuss further next steps with that. But we got to get the ball rolling somewhere.
And so as a point of clarity, like if there are documents being exchanged, or not even being exchanged, that we have received from the other group, but they're not, it sounds like we should just default to making sure everybody gets all of those documents. That's fine. I just want to share that just because they sent it to us does not mean it's something that we have decided we support or are in favor of or any of those things. And that those kinds of discussions would come before the full group. Ms. Bolden.
Yes, I would like to see those documents or document, and it is important to have a shared vision, but it's also important for us to know where people are coming from. So while we're trying to arrange a shared vision, we understand those things that are kind of non-starters or starters, or we're going to be treading water again, something that could have been done or should have been done about 11 months ago. So I think I appreciate seeing the document, and I appreciate too revisiting those pledges and outlines when the first new money was granted by the public, and also in the renewal 5 years later. We have to live by what has been said. And as we can evolve it and present it in the next renewal, which is in a year or
The
so.
philosophical context.
Yes. So, yes, I need to see the documents, and I think it's great to keep working on this together.
Thank you much. Any other inquiries or updates this evening? Any assignments this evening? Any announcements or kudos this evening? Jones.
Yes. On October 12th, I'll be brief, I promise. On October 12th, I attended the Ohio School Board Association Southwest Region, which I also represent the district on, their fall conference. And it's funny because when I checked in, they said, you're at table 2. Well, typically, tables 1 and 2 are for the VIPs. And I kept thinking, no, wait a minute. I kept thinking, why am I at table 2? I don't, but I sat at table 2 with all the, the outgoing, the last year's president and the coordinator and all that. I didn't know why. But anyway, it was indeed an honor and a pleasure to be able to accept the award and the recognition given to Walnut Hills High School as one of only 2 high schools in the state of Ohio as a 2023 National Blue Ribbon School. And I stood up with pride and I shouted. And I was like, yes. But so we were acknowledged and recognized, and people stood up with me. And we are the only high school in the Southwest region who received that award. So I graciously accepted on behalf of Walnut Hills and for the district. It's like a paper certificate, and I am going to make sure that the superintendent gets it. And but I wanted to make sure, that Walnut Hills knew that the OSBA Southwest region presented them with that.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Any other announcements or kudos? Dr. Moffitt?
So I was appointed to the Business Advisory Council for the board, and each of you have a yellow bag from the meeting. And they've got some awesome career tech things coming up down the pike, but there's some announcements in there, and I didn't want to have to recreate the wheel. So Mike Turner allowed me the opportunity to collect a bag for my colleagues. So you all have a bag, and you have a little squeegee thing for the stressors that are coming up for the budget. So, so we can all take a minute, read that material, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moffitt. Other announcements or kudos? I will just share that I had a wonderful time going to First Student last week to celebrate National Transportation Safety or Bus Safety Week, and wanted to thank publicly all of our bus drivers and our CPS transportation team. I know everybody's always trying to do a better and better job, and that is great and that is healthy, but holy cow, have we made some progress since last year. And want to just thank everybody on the CPS side and want to thank everybody on the First Student and the contractor side. It was a wonderful thing. Thank you. Dr. Moffitt.
I got a chance, I didn't make the CPS website, but I did get a chance to go over to First Student and along with 2 CPS staffers, and we had a great time with donuts, orange juice next time, because everybody doesn't drink coffee. But Dr. Little went with me, and we had a great time listening to some of their concerns, and we ended up saying, you all are the very first contact for our students, and they were proud to be the first contact for our students and helping get them to school so that they're ready to learn. They had some great suggestions. I think Dr. Little took some notes, and so hopefully we'll be able to share that as well. But student safety, was it state safety, bus safety week was a success. Thank you.
Superintendent.
Thank you. I would just also like to add to those conversations, and one day we're going to get it right where we're going to do one thing and it's going to be enough across the board. I just imagine a day when that's going to happen. So next year we won't just have coffee, we'll look to have juice. Hopefully we can have more than just donuts. So that we can get everyone what they need. But we heard First Student twice. I just want to share that we were actually at all of our terminals. We had representation at all of our terminals. First Student is one of our contractors. We also have UTS, we have Peterman, and Ketterman is the other one. There's one more, the fourth one. It does all the van. Kemper, I'm sorry. So we were at all, we had representatives at all of our bus depots. We also recognized the drivers and the assistants that were on the bus. So next year we'll look to do a better job of including the assistants in School Bus Safety Week. But because we heard First Student twice, I did want to acknowledge that we did go to all of our
And
contractors.
we appreciate every single one of them, so thank you. Any other announcements or kudos? Having no other business before us, I declare our meeting adjourned. Less than 2 hours.